Hey, welcome back to Pints and Perspectives, a podcast hosted by WellHouse Church, where we believe there is a plethora of theological perspectives and plenty of beer to go around.
Yo, it's your boys back again. It's that time for the Pints and the Perspectives. I mean, not as many perspectives as we would like. Perhaps we should bring on more. With that said, go ahead and like and subscribe so that we can make some money on this thing, so that we can buy a third microphone, so that we can have a third perspective.
Yes, a perspective of a person of color and a woman would be a dream.
Yes. So come through, make it happen for us. If you want to see more diversity on this podcast, how can listeners and viewers contact us?
IG is going to be the best way, I think, for both of us.
What's the handle? What's the
your handle?
At Chaney _AJ. But what's the at Cullen? You just changed yours.
Cullen J. Ware.
You know, a Gen Zer told me that the use of handle was old, outdated, and so millennial, and it's not the appropriate thing to call that.
What should we call it?
Account.
An at?
Account name.
Oh, okay. Whatever.
Which I'm like, that's so boring.
Whatever. Whatever.
Well, hello then, welcome back. That's all I got. There's your intro. I do still have buttons, and I hope you've enjoyed them.
We did ask for people to give us ideas of what sounds they want imported in.
Yeah.
No one has. So we need somebody to do that.
Somebody do that.
Let us know. I did get quite a bit of feedback that people enjoy the buttons. They add a level of lightheartedness to it, which I think is good.
Yes.
Okay, so beer. Adam brought these beers.
That's right, because Cullen is just falling down on the job.
No, I have two. I had half of them.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I had half of what we needed for today, and I just didn't have time to go to the store.
Today, I'm working with a St. Arnold, the Texas original craft brewery, the Rich and Robust Tarnation Unreasonably Strong Ale. Oh wait, I have things for this. Let's see, what do people? No, that's not right. Okay, figure out the buttons later. Tarnation. It's a strong ale. So what's a strong ale? A strong ale is a type of ale usually above 5% ABV and often higher than 7% to 11% ABV, which spans a number of beer styles, including old ales, barley wine ales. But so this beer is just listed as a strong ale, and it is 9% alcohol by volume. Ooh. So we're going to get turnt.
On this Monday afternoon.
I don't know what else to say about it. I've never had it. It is a seasonal beer. I think it's seasonal. I know they don't always carry it. It says, see, we brewed Tarnation just for you and your wild bunch to enjoy all year round. So I guess maybe it's not seasonal then. It's made with 4 different malts, 4 different hops, and is 9% ABV, and will be darned if it ain't one of the highest alcohol recipes ever kicked up with Kolsch yeast.
Oh.
So I don't know. We're going to see if I make it through the episode.
Okay. All right. We're going to see if you make it through the episode. I think he'll be all right.
I think I'll be all right. What are you drinking?
I have an IPA from Platypus Brewing, which, if you listen, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 episodes ago.
It may have been the last episode, like just the most
Platypus did not get a great review because
Cullen's
they had the wrong URL printed on their can.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's the same again.
Oof.
This is absurd.
Absurd. Well, starting up a new business is hard, and
it's been open since 2016.
As someone who produces,
I'm not giving.
As someone who produces content, specifically copy on a daily basis, sometimes typos get through all the best checks and balances.
Yeah. Well,
but no grace here.
This is a very simple marketing issue. I mean, you've got
website.
You've got enough history to have 8 established labels on your website and you don't have your cans representing your accurate URL. No.
Fix it. Don't apologize. Do better.
Don't apologize. Do better. Anyways, this is an IPA. I am excited about it. It's a seasonal release IPA. It's called the Gold Coast, and it's 8% ABV. So
hey, we getting
turned on this Monday afternoon.
Turned on this Monday.
All right. Cheers, buddy.
Well, cheers. Cannon bottle. Holy crap. Incredible. Bitter. They said that they're using 4 malts and 4 hops. Yeah. Truth. Facts. It is a kick in the face in terms of the hop. It's not like sometimes, hops can be like real crisp and bitter.
Yeah.
Or even like fruity and bitter, or like even like a lot of people describes hops these days like as juicy and bitter. This is just like flat out bitter, just like bitter. It's hot. It's got a little bit of alcohol on the breath, and it's malty and rich and thick. And they call it Tar Nation for a reason.
Yeah,
it's just doing all the things. The one thing that sticks with me is the hops, and there's it's not that great on the finish. It's a little too. I guess I'm still holding on to like a little bit of vanilla on the finish as well, on the back of my palate, but the bitterness is really sticking around. But unreasonably strong ale, rich and robust. All facts. Very good. I give it an 8.
Oh,
it's great.
Look at that.
Very good beer.
Look at that. St. Arnold. Killing it again.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
If you have not had the pleasure of drinking a St. Arnold's brew, it's worth the trip to Houston.
Definitely. And the brewery itself is an incredible time. Great place to hang out.
Okay, so I've talked about IPAs needing to head out of their can.
Look at that. Go to YouTube right now.
This is killing it. I didn't even get to search the aromas before I had to put some, take a
look
drink
at that thing.
Because it headed out.
It is exploding. They're on Washington, right? Oh,
yes. Yeah. It's very good. I will say, unfortunately, I think it's pretty run of the mill. There's nothing really.
It's seasonal, yeah?
Yeah, it's seasonal, which, you should, if you were going to make something seasonal,
it better be good.
Should have some flair.
You better be doing something different.
And this, I'm not sure really is for me.
Which one is it?
This is the Gold Coast.
Gold Coast.
Probably not even on their website.
It is right there. 8%, yeah.
Yeah, 8% ABV.
Light-bodied IPA. That's your problem.
But I would disagree. I'm not sure that it is all that light-bodied. It's 8% ABV. It can't be that light.
Well, fair. Yeah. So how's the alcohol on it? Is it?
Okay, so it's not real hot.
Okay.
It doesn't taste hot. And so maybe that's what they mean by it. But
citrus tones from kettle and dry hops? No?
Citrus tones from kettle and dry. Yeah, it probably is dry hopped. It tastes like it could be dry hopped.
Which might explain some of the kind of, what did they call it? Balance.
Well, yeah, if you dry hop, it kind of takes away. I mean, it is a balancing measure, but it kind of makes like the hop the middle balance rather than the malt, which is what you're really trying to do when you talk about balancing beer out.
They have a beer called Ole Cheat. I think it's Holy Chit.
Yeah.
Inappropriate.
Yeah, I think I'm like 5'8".
Okay. Whoa, 5'8".
Yeah.
That's low on the Cullen scale.
Well, I really do like beer, and I try to I really try to start everything at a 6'8". Like it just everything begins at a 6'8" and goes up or down.
Understood.
And I gave the beer a 5.8 regardless of how I feel about the URL issue. If we include that, I think it should drop by 3.
Holy mess.
I mean, it's not my favorite.
I mean, it's not like they misspelled their name. I mean, I don't know. Maybe close enough.
You know what? Be better.
Don't apologize. Do better. All right. Artless transition. Hey, now it's time to talk about theology.
It is now
that's terrible.
time
That's a
to
terrible
talk
bone.
about theology.
We got to get these things fixed. What are we talking about today, Cullen?
We're going to talk about this God character.
Oh, yeah. You're going to like tell a story or something.
Yes.
Also, Cullen's into Rubik's Cubes now, and there's like these new Rubik's Cubes everywhere he goes, and they're nice looking.
Well, so, okay. Quick side story. I was trying to figure out why I've become fascinated with Rubik's Cubes.
Okay.
Number one, because I never had one when I was a kid.
Come on, Kevin. What are you doing?
Well, this is why.
You were working, not playing. Ain't that right? Mend the fence, boy.
Irregardless of how you feel about it or not, I think toys like this were a toy of people of privilege. Which I didn't have.
Waste of time.
Well, and it also requires safety. It requires that you be in a place where you feel comfortable dedicating attention to looking down at a cube, and irregardless of what's happening around you, and hours of time to try to figure it out. Yeah, I didn't have those kind of luxuries.
Wow.
And now as an adult, getting the opportunity to really like think about them in ways of problem solving. Yeah, I'm like, I cannot get enough.
Why didn't you buy actual Rubik's Cubes? These look like off-brands. Is this because they were cheaper on Amazon?
No, these are speed cubes.
Speed cubes. So they're made for doing it faster. Okay. Well, look, see, so he got interested in a task and suddenly went, you know what? I want to be the fastest at it.
Something like that.
Yeah, go ahead. Who's this God character?
Who's this God character? Okay. I have been making this claim that God is fighting a war.
Yep.
And that main foundational premise helps set a trajectory of the biblical story that I think significantly better.
Core to the narrative.
Yeah. And we have tracked that through Genesis 1, 2, and 3, roughly in and around this entire thing. But my main argument is that God creates, and that in the beginning, that when they create, there's a dichotomy of sorts that begins with water and darkness.
Yes.
And those begin to be motifs that at least throughout a lot of the Old Testament
Chaos.
And some of the New Testament. Yeah, so the waters, the deep, as they're called in Genesis 1, the deep are chaos. They ancient Jewish literature reflects them in a negative light. That's what houses Leviathan, right?
Gotcha.
The sea dragon. People, Israelites don't sail.
Right.
In the Old Testament, they're land people.
Right.
So they're afraid of the water, right? You have stories like Jonah.
I guess except for on the Sea of Galilee, which is a lake.
Which is a lake.
By the way.
It's not actually sailing.
No, yeah. I mean, it does have like wind gust and stuff. Like they do use sails.
Yeah, but it's an enclosed body of water.
Correct.
You're not in open water.
It's not a sea.
No.
Not to boast too much, but I've been there.
Yeah.
You can see all the sides of it. It's a lake.
Yeah, it's definitely a lake. So, yeah, and specifically in the Old Testament, right? Innovation by the time of the New Testament, Paul's sailing all over the place.
Yeah,
so
well,
it's a little bit...
Rome is in power at that point.
Yeah. So I want to track some of this story of God through the Old Testament because I think it would be helpful. Because I think it's pretty common for people to have these kind of stories of the Old Testament kind of floating around as like logical data points in their mind, but not really having a way to construct them in some kind of meaningful, concise comic strip, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, narrative arc.
A storyboard.
Yeah, storyboard. Yeah, I like it.
So we're going to do that. Genesis 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to skip because we've kind of already done that. And I don't know how many episodes this is going to be because I don't know how long it's going to be, but heads up, it's going to be long. So I don't know. Yeah. And I guess I'm going to retract what I just said. Adam applauded, and he had no idea what I was retracting. He's in for it.
Oh, no.
I think I'm going to retract my statement that we're going to skip over Genesis 1, 2, and 3.
Oh.
And I think we're going to spend some time looking at them briefly because what I want to show you is Genesis 1 through 11.
Okay.
I think Genesis 1 through 11, I would call it myth. So what do I mean by that when I say myth?
I don't really know. Like just like an oral tradition handed down that is, I don't know. What's the definition of myth? I honestly don't know how to define that.
I mean that it's a myth the way that Santa Claus is a myth.
Yeah.
I mean that it's a myth the way that the Easter Bunny is a myth.
Like a generationally transmitted story of something.
It's,
I don't know.
Yeah, some kind of lore-based story that you can glean certain truths from.
Because it teaches something. A traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of a people or explaining some natural or social phenomenon, typically involving supernatural forces or events, widely held as false.
Yeah. But what I mean by it is it can be I can glean truth from the story without having to take the story as factual.
Yeah, myth is a lore genre consisting of narratives that play a fundamental role in society. To teach. Cool.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's what I mean when I say myth. And I believe Job is myth.
Sure.
I believe Genesis 1 through 11 is myth.
Sure.
So I believe the historical story of Israel, which is what the Bible is telling, begins in Genesis chapter 12 with Noah.
Got it.
With Abraham. The reason that I want to point that out is because I think that's very important because Genesis 1 through 11, I'm going to argue, is a threefold repetitive pattern of power and the seeking of power.
Okay.
And that will be once you see what I see that way, it will make so much else make sense.
Because we're still talking about the problem of evil.
Right. And part of the problem of evil always begins with power. It's always about
omnis, right?
Power.
We're always talking about
always about power.
It's true.
So,
isn't it always?
In Genesis 1, you get this construct that there is darkness. Just darkness and the deep is what it appears to be. It's literally just dark and water. And God happens upon it and lights it up and then adds land, and from the land, animals and creation. And so what I think the real truth that Genesis 1 is trying to tell you, it's not that God made the earth in 7 literal days. I mean, how can you even calculate a day until you get the sun, which you don't get until day 1?
Right.
I mean, like, nobody's trying to communicate that with this story. But what I do think they're trying to communicate to you is that God is the originator of what we now know as the world. And the things that God brought into existence were life. God did not bring about the deep. God did not bring about the darkness. God did not bring about the chaos. God brought forth life in light of the darkness.
I don't know, man. I'm dubious.
You can be dubious.
I want to know how you're defining water there, because water is the source of life.
Well, in what ways is water the source of life?
Well, I just mean like the chemical reaction of hydrogen and oxygen, and then
yeah.
I mean,
but you also realize that
something-
you're defining an element of water that I don't believe was what God found.
Oh, right. So that's what I'm saying. How are we defining this water you speak of? It's not H2O.
Was salt water. It's the deep. It's the open water.
It's
the Dead Sea. It's the water that's not useful to us except to cool the earth.
Is the chemical composition of freshwater and saltwater different? Of course it is.
It has salt in it, yes.
What is the... Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Proceed.
So, anyways, you go through, and that's chapter 1. God creates all this stuff, and when God creates humans, God creates them equal.
Okay.
In Genesis chapter 1, the only description that we get is in verse 26. Then God said, let us make humankind in our image according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over the wild animals of the earth. 27. So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. There is no isolated stories of Adam being made and then existing for a period without Eve and then Eve being made. In Genesis chapter 1, they are made together. And the first command they are given is not one of omission, the thing you cannot do. It's one of commission, the thing you must do. Do you remember what it is, Adam?
Make babies.
Hey, and the Lord said hallelujah.
I mean that's how we translate it, but like being fruitful and multiplying.
Bless them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth.
Advance the species in unison and harmony with
Love,
with everything else that's around it.
Yeah, exactly.
The nature that is around it.
That's the first picture you get, close scene. That's Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 2 is a different creation story.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and say it. Can we just all please stop with the hermeneutical jump rope games of trying to join them together and the weird way that we use that Hebrew participle or that Hebrew preposition to try to say that it's okay that they're out of order? It's not.
Have to syncretize everything, man.
They are different stories.
Yeah.
They're just simply different stories. The ordering's different. What happens is different. They're just different stories because they're not trying to communicate exactly the same truths.
Right.
Genesis chapter 1 is trying to tell you what creation is. That it is a place that God intended to be life-giving, life-breeding, life-bearing.
All of creation.
All of creation. Genesis chapter 2 told you why.
For the advancement of the species in harmony with nature.
Well, for community, for fellowship, for enjoyment of one another.
Okay.
Because that's why you get now in chapter 2, which I will tell you, if you read the correct Bible, you'll get a little subheading right here that says another account of the creation. Another, a different one, a different account of the same creation. And this is where you get this concept where Adam is made and then he's given some commands to work and do some things. That's because this is about giving order and structure to society. This gets you more into hey, here's why and how. What I might say is, I would believe that if you were going to break it up this way, Genesis 1 is the theological claims about God, and Genesis 2 is the practical, what does it mean about creation? Like, what do we do with these theological claims? This is how it's being written, Okay. And in Genesis chapter 2 is where they're given the commands of omission, the things you cannot do. You cannot eat of the tree that's in the middle of the garden, knowledge of good and evil. But the tree of life is also in there. So, and they're free to eat of that and anything else they want, right? Also, no death. They can't eat an animal. They're not permitted to eat an animal.
Okay.
They cannot commit death.
Okay.
Genesis chapter 3. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just don't. Okay, we have to suspend so many things that we understand about the scientific.
No. See, stop.
Okay.
Why are you trying to make them have scientific claims?
Okay, go ahead.
4,000 years ago.
Okay, go ahead.
They're telling a story.
Okay.
When you read Shakespeare, do you hold him to the same scientific claims you hold the Bible to when you read its stories?
I think a better analogy there would be when I watch Star Wars, do I hold it to the same scientific claims? So
Or
no.
when you read the Odyssey or the Iliad?
Sure, no. Not at all.
Then why do you insist on always holding the Bible to those same presuppositions?
Yeah. Maybe it's a bad story.
It's not a bad story if you read it as a story,
Okay, go
but
ahead.
you still don't.
Go ahead. That's
Okay.
why we're here.
Now, Genesis 3 comes. What happens in Genesis 3, Adam?
Well, I guess them humans fall victim to the trap that is set by their creator.
Oh, is that what happens?
Yeah. I mean, he says, hey, I put this tree out here. Don't mess with it.
Did God put that tree there?
Well, he created all things. He spoke all things into the being. Genesis 1 and 2, didn't he put all the things in all the places and say all the things and create all the things and day this and day that? And it was good and it was very good.
But is the tree of knowledge of good and evil a good thing? Or is it an evil thing?
So wait. But then you're saying that if God didn't create the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then it was pre-existent along with the salt water?
Well, no, but what I am saying is that if you're accepting my premise that there's a counterpart adversary to God that we have called ground of death, then they also have as their existing
creative power.
In some ways.
So the tree of life and the tree, let's just, the tree of knowledge of good and evil was created and planted, so to speak, by not God.
Well, it can't be holy God, because my argument would be God knows no evil except when evil is done to them or their people.
So even God has not eaten of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
God only knows what is good and therefore can only do what is good. God knows not what is bad until it's done and entered into existence. And so to have a tree of knowledge of good and evil would mean at least some impartation from adversarial force to get evil in said fruit, if you were going to hold it to some kind of literal reading like that.
Okay.
Following?
You're a heretic, but go ahead.
I'm not.
Okay,
What,
sure.
what council tells me that I'm a heretic?
Okay.
Come on.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so this gets in there, and you end up having the serpent show up.
Mm-hmm.
That's strange creature that we do not know anymore.
Yeah, I mean the Hebrew is so like serpent's all we got, and we know that it had like legs or something.
It had legs and it walked upright. The text calls it, it's hard to translate, but like beautiful or fair, maybe handsome. Like it's a cunning.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, the ancient world's idea of a con man.
And somehow it is not human, but is able to communicate with humans somehow, some way, something.
Well, and I think that's intentional. That it is alien to humans.
Ooh, extraterrestrial.
I'm not. Ooh. I don't know if I would say extraterrestrial. Maybe I would say that.
Did it come from another terrestrial? Was it created? Is it the...
It is created. I would say it is created.
Is it the physical embodiment of this not God ground of death thing?
Nope.
So God made it?
No, God didn't make it, but I'm not.
But it was here before? Where'd it come from?
Well, so that's my thing is I think Ground of Being has some like creative powers in that same way. Like think about screw tape letters. Like I do think they have the power to create and orchestrate and move pieces of the chessboard in the same way that God does. And so I do, like, I don't have a struggle saying that they helped create a temptation there and some kind of tempter, which we've said is the existing consistency of Hasatan, which later becomes the embodiment of this character.
Yeah, which tracks with, Okay.
So Genesis 3 shows up, all of this happens, and when they eat of the fruit, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, man, I could preach about so many things in here. But I do think I need to highlight this because it's important to a piece moving forward. This is the moment when they eat the fruit that they realize they're naked.
Uh-huh.
Okay? That's real important.
Uh-huh.
Because the end of Genesis 2, the last verse of Genesis 2, is that the man and the woman were both naked and unashamed.
Unashamed. And then purity culture got a hold of them.
Well, God, no.
Why were they ashamed?
So this is the question that you have, is when they eat the fruit, they now realize that they've done the thing God told them not to do, and they experience shame. Now, what is shame? Shame is twofold. It's not guilt. Guilt says, I've done a bad thing. Shame says, because I've done a bad thing, I am a bad thing.
Ooh.
And it's a projection of your own ideas about yourself onto the person that you wronged, because notice, God hasn't shamed them yet.
They projected onto God.
They projected shame onto God. Now,
okay,
because they did do something wrong,
okay,
and there definitely is guilt, there is at fault. They did something God said don't do.
That's
now,
true.
Let me also say, God did not say, if you do this, I will punish you by.
He said, if you do this, you will surely die.
Oh. And is God the author of death? Does God control death, or does God control life?
Well, all the ex-evangelicals would argue that the evangelical reading of this narrative would suggest that God is the author of death in this very moment.
Well, I'm not asking for an evangelical reading. I'm asking for the biblical reading. Did Genesis right now in this story tell you that God was the author of life or death?
No.
No, God did not cause death upon these people.
But isn't his
God
curse?
said, if you do this, you will die.
You will surely die. Not I will smite thee.
Right. Now that they disobeyed God, what happened to them was they will now experience death.
Yes.
God's punishments to them, the man, the woman, the serpent, and the earth that God created,
right,
are punitive for the guilt.
Okay.
No shame. The shame is their own creation, which will come to later importance in the next area of this series when we talk about the human perspective and how this impacts all of us.
Okay.
Okay? So, going forward, when that happens, God issues four curses. That the serpent will no longer walk upright. It will crawl on its belly. It'll eat dust. That its head will be crushed by the heel. There are lots of things that happen. There'll be enmity between you and the man. The man is cursed that he will now have to sweat and labor for his work. That the crops will not grow in abundance the way they once did. Eve is cursed in that childbearing, not that it's a new thing, but only that now it will be painful.
Oh, okay.
That's the real curse, is that now it will be painful to you, which my argument to the reason it's not like that they haven't had any kids yet, because why would you tell someone something that they've never experienced that it used to not be painful, but you didn't know that, and now it is painful, and now that's all you'll know? That doesn't seem That doesn't accomplish anything.
Yes. Okay.
So somebody has to have a reference point for something in order for you to tell them that it's going to be worse for it to matter.
Okay. Understood.
So, and then the fourth curse is kind of like a byproduct curse of actually the curse that's issued to the man, and it's issued to the ground, the earth, which is it will now bear thorns and thistles. It will now have negatively impacted growth that comes from it.
Okay. I was reading the Hebrew. While you were talking, I was parsing out the Hebrew of 3:14 because my response was going to be like, when the curses are issued, who's issuing the curses?
God is. God's issuing the curses.
So God is the cursor.
God is the one issuing the punishments for the guilt.
And the punishments are
that they did what God told them not to do.
But the punishments are suffering in ways.
In ways, yeah. There's negative consequences for them disobeying God.
So who's the author of suffering?
Oh, God.
Okay.
But not evil.
Okay. So the problem of evil, suffering is not evil. Evil is something different.
Well, but suffering is caused by evil. And that's why when God says, I've got to right all this wrong, even wrong that I've done, I must be the one to go and endure evil and suffer and conquer said evil and suffering.
Okay. Whatever. Go ahead.
Come on. So, Genesis chapter 4 shows up.
Okay.
What's 4? What happens in 4? Oh my gosh. 2 degrees over here and you can't.
Is this when they get kicked out?
No, that's 3, bro.
This is when they have a baby?
No? Oh, yes.
Then Cain and Abel?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's Cain and Abel. Okay? Now, what I will say about this is Genesis 1 through 3 becomes this kind of like capsule story.
Got it. Because you're talking about a typological movement that keeps happening.
It's a type. So this happens, and you get it from their actual rebellion.
Okay.
Because the serpent does show up and tempts them. Says, did God say you would die?
Right.
And puts a little bit of doubt, and then they eat. And once they eat that is a move of power. Mm-hmm. Because what the serpent's temptation is, he says, did God say you would really die? Verse 4, but the serpent said to the woman, you will not die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God,
right,
knowing good and evil. Now, here's my argument. Everything they've ever been told is to be like God.
Oh.
The only thing they've ever been told is that they're made in the image and likeness of God, and that they should be like God in procreation and bearing life and having dominion. Dominion, that's not a word in the way that we would use it now. It is a dominion word in a rulership way.
They're like the operations director of the nonprofit.
Yeah, but the first time it's ever used, the word's actually about the stars having dominion.
Oh.
So it's really about this like rulership of goodness, this like having dominion and bringing about goodness into the world. And so when the serpent tempts them, he says, that's not what will happen. You won't die. You'll be like God, the thing you were told to do. So them stepping outside of God's intention for their own intention of what God wants them to do and what it's like to be like God, they pursue power. So that's the punitive part, and that's why the punishment happens. So they pursue power in that moment. Genesis 4.
Okay.
It's a pursuit of power, pursuing attention from God.
Yes.
Cain and Abel. This is the first, maybe this is the other thing I should say. This is the first time we're ever told that people are different.
Okay.
Everything else is that they were created in the image and likeness of God. They were male and female. They were this, they together.
Oh.
Not here. What is it?
Abel is a keeper of sheep and Cain is a tiller of soil.
They're different.
Yeah.
They're doing something different.
They have different jobs.
And one does something and the other one makes an offering. And God says one is better than the other, not because of substance, but because of heart, because of disposition, because of pursuit of divine likeness.
Sin is crouching at your door, Cain. It desires you. See, sin is personified there. Go ahead.
And Cain kills him for it.
Yeah, which
kills his brother.
That escalated quickly.
So the first sin recorded in the Bible, eating some fruit that you weren't supposed to eat. The second sin,
murder.
Moida. Jumped all the way to utmost harm to an individual.
What's the word for killing your brother? Patricide is when you kill your dad. Matricide is when you kill your mom. Phileo-cide. I don't know. Go ahead.
So once that happens, you can see that that is a lateral harming of one another for ascent up to God.
Murder for power.
Okay. And specifically who we're trying to get power to is God.
Yeah,
right?
we want to be like God.
We want to be like God. We want God to like us. Okay? So that's 4.
Okay.
The rest of 4 and 5 is a genealogy.
Yep.
You can go through that. Let me just go ahead
and say. The father of Enosh, and after he became the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years, and so Seth lived on for 912 years, and then
nobody
he died.
Wants to read that.
When Enosh was 90 years old, he became the father of Kenan. Go ahead. Sorry.
The reason it's in there is I think even if you found some records, it would probably be off. I don't think the accuracy is what it's trying to communicate.
Yeah, but as a kid, weren't you told that
1,000%. I was told that you could track all of these to come up with the exact number of years of how old the Bible was.
Exactly.
And the world.
And then you get to verse 18, and Jared was 162 years old and became the father of Enoch. And then we all go crazy because we love Enoch because
he never dies.
Enoch in verse 24 walked with God and then
ascended,
was no more.
Yeah, ascended
because God took him away.
Yep, ascended. He did not die. Mm-hmm. He is only one of 3 characters in the Bible to have ever ascended. But anyways, the genealogy is not really of real importance.
And all the Old Testament professors die a little inside.
The value of the genealogy is to show you that many, many years have passed and the world has been populated.
Yeah.
That God's command to humanity has been fulfilled, that it has been fruitful and multiplied.
It's also like a little bit of a fast forward button because they got to get from Cain and Abel to Noah.
And the genealogy ends in chapter 6, verse 1 begins with, when people began to multiply on the face of the ground and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw they were fair and took wives for themselves of all that they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans who bore children to them. These were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. The Lord saw the wickedness of humankind was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made humankind on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot them out from the earth, the human beings I have created, people together with animals and creeping things and birds of the air, and I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the sight of the Lord. I think it's important to note here that the first thing that you're told is that God's command was fulfilled and it went to straight absolute shit.
Wickedness.
Dumpster fire on repeat. It's terrible.
God was a bad creator.
Or the tempter was real good.
A really good tempter. Yeah, because there is a verse here. Look, you got me reading the Bible. Genesis 6:5 ends with every inclination of thought and of their heart was altogether completely evil.
They now know no more good.
All of the time.
They know no more good, which is problematic.
I'd say.
And the other thing that I might tell you is that the first thing you're told about God's response is God's emotion. God regretted. God was sorry. God felt that before they acted on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I was just reading the Hebrew of that verse, and it the Hebrew is very emphatic that it is all of the whole, complete, every moment of everyday time filled with evil.
And
with
now,
no exception.
Well, and now you get a glimpse of what that evil is. Verse 9. These are the Verse 11. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with what? Violence.
Oh, what translation are you reading?
NRSV, my man. Is there another?
I don't know what translation this is set to. Oh, the Berean Standard.
Oh my God.
I was looking at the Hebrew.
Get this guy out of here. And God saw that the earth was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its ways upon the earth. Okay? So, that is so interesting to me that God associates evil with violence and death and murder. Okay? Now, God ends up at a place where they think that they have to solve the problem.
Okay.
It's too bad. They regret their decision. They find
start over.
They find favor in Noah, some kind of righteous man, and they're going to start over. Now, when they decide they're going to start over, what I think is so interesting is, well, we'll talk about Noah, the character, and starting over later in a second, because I think that's important too. But when God decide that they're going to start over with Noah, they decide, or at least the story communicates, they're going to do this level of destruction by what?
Flood.
Water.
Water.
The first thing we were introduced to in the story outside of God themselves.
Chaos water.
But this time, it's not chaos water.
It's murder water.
Well, it's water that comes from the sky.
Oh.
Which later becomes a different kind of metaphor, which we'll talk about on the New Testament side. But God floods the earth. And it's important for me to remind you that every ancient Near Eastern community has a flood story.
Yeah.
This is not a uniquely Christian concept.
Right.
Every ancient Near Eastern culture had a flood story. The Epic of Gilgamesh is the oldest one that we have a remaining copy for. But every ancient Near Eastern culture had one. So the flood happens. And God destroys it all. There's this beautiful passage.
Wait, who destroys it all?
God.
Is God a murderer?
In that way, you would say that God did something that harmed creation.
Killed everything. Everyone, I should say.
Well, not everyone.
Well, yeah, except for one family.
One family.
Okay, go ahead.
So,
bad God.
So then, that story comes to a close, and remember that righteous man that we were talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, that righteous man gets drunk. The first thing he does when he gets off,
the ship joins Pints and Perspectives for a strong ale, and then he gets so drunk that he gets naked in a ditch.
Well, actually, he plants a vineyard and makes wine, and then
how long did that
drunk.
take?
Yeah, see, lore,
right?
He gets drunk, and he gets so drunk that he passes out naked in his tent.
Hold on, pause. Sidebar. For those of you who read the Bible literally, I want you to think about the fact that wherever Noah sat down, let's go literal reading science book view of the Bible.
Okay.
Noah is floating around on this ship. He lands in some location. He gets off the ship and he does what? He plants a vineyard. Cullen, when you're dirt, when your soil has been soaked in salt water, is it capable of cultivating
No.
anything, much less the complexity of
No.
grapes for wine?
No.
This is not a literal story. This is not possible. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I might say that if you were trying to read it literal, in order for there to be enough water to cover the mountaintops, which is what the Bible suggests, it would need to be so much rainfall, which is fresh water, that it wouldn't matter how much salt water you had.
Maybe it wasn't even salt water. Maybe it was all fresh water
because
it was only rain.
If it's rain, yeah.
But okay, sorry, we're getting into never mind. Proceed.
Anyways, so the reason I tell you about his drunkenness is because Noah does exactly what God did.
Got drunk.
No. Noah realized that he messed up when he experienced his own nakedness. His son walked into his tent and saw that he was naked. Then he went back and told his older brothers. And then those guys walked in backwards and covered him up. When Noah wakes up the next morning, realizes what happened, he goes outside and he does exactly what God did. Issues curses.
Starts cursing everybody because he's hungover.
But he messed up because he only cursed one person.
Ham.
Nope. Well, that's who messed up. But it's not Ham that gets cursed.
Turkey.
It's Ham's son, Canaan.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The innocent grandson is the one that gets cursed.
Bad Noah.
Yep. It's the one that gets cursed. The innocent grandson named Canaan. So,
okay,
a similar pattern happens of sin or the thing you're not supposed to do, and then a revealing of nakedness, and then curses being issued. But instead of God doing it, this time humans did it. Noah took that role of God and cursed an innocent. Cursed someone that had no wrongdoing in it. None. Story ends.
Yeah, good.
Story ends, and wouldn't you know, the next thing you get's another genealogy, another list of people in existence. More time has passed, and now you get the Tower of Babel.
Yes.
What is the Tower of Babel? It is all of human existence coming together for one purpose.
To be like God.
Chapter 11, verse 4. Come, let us build ourselves a city. Oh, wait, what did God build for humanity?
A garden.
A garden. And how did God say? Let us make
men in our image.
Okay. Let us build ourselves a city and tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves.
Yep.
They're trying to be like God.
Power. Ascent to power.
And so God shows up and
kills them all.
Nope.
He says, you know what?
I
tried to murk y'all.
God had enough of that.
I tried to squish you under the weight of water. So now I'm going to just make you unable to communicate with one another.
Yep.
This God is bad at creating and bad at cursing.
But isn't it interesting that God fixes both curses, and specifically this one, post-Jesus?
Okay, so it's all about Jesus. Got it.
Well, don't you think Genesis 11 is fulfilled in Acts chapter 2?
Because of the tongue talking, the glossolalia. Mm-hmm. Is it fixed though? Because if I fly to South Korea right now, I'm not going to understand squat diddly.
It's true.
So I don't know if it's fixed.
I don't know if it's fixed, but this is that threefold pattern. And, and there is so much more, but we are already way too long.
Yeah, they gave up. Nobody's listening. Only Kevin is still here. Hey, Mr. Ware.
Hey, shout out, Pops. So the only, this threefold pattern, it is threefold of one pattern from Genesis 1 through 3. And it's about the story of how humanity forsook love, life, and community for the pursuit of power and used violence as their means.
Love, life, and power.
Then when it didn't work, they used innovation and building and construction.
Technology.
And so God shut that down too. Now.
So God is against TikTok.
Oh,
The power that is in your hands when you open that TikTok app, it's like God is there. It's like accessing the heavens.
Who brought this guy?
Bring back Clayton.
Thanks for listening to the Pints and Perspectives Podcast hosted by WellHouse Church. Be sure to give us a rating and a review if you enjoyed the episode. It's free and it helps us immensely. Also, feel free to check out our other podcasts.